Welcome to a Legendarium special about the extraordinary life of Archpriest Avvakum. Avvakum Petrov was born in a village within Nizhny Novgorod to the family of a priest. He became a deacon or assistant priest at age 21. By age 31, he became an archpriest, a senior rank in the Orthodox Church. A man of almost unimaginably intense piety, Avvakum said 600 prayers to Jesus and 100 to Mary each night before going to sleep. In between, he did 300 prostrations, in which he touched his forehead to the ground and stood up once more. Indeed, his fierce piety made Archpriest Avvakum the stuff of legend. One tale of him told of a troupe of clowns playing tambourines and lutes and joined by dancing bears arriving in his home village, bears themselves a symbol of pagan gods. Their noise and merriment distracted the pious from services. A young Avvakum drove them out, releasing the bears into the fields and smashing their musical instruments. In another story preserved in his autobiography, Avvakum refused to bless the local governor's son because he shaved his beard, which broke church law. Furious, the governor threw Avvakum into the Volga River. A third tale told of him rescuing an orphan girl from the attentions of a senior official. To show his admiration for the archpriest's courage and piety, the official beat him and then sent a mob to attack his house. Yet Avvakum faced his greatest enemy in his own church's patriarch, Nikon. As patriarch, Nikon created a fierce religious revival among the Muscovite ruling class. For a time, Tsar Alexei I, his family, and court attended services lasting 7 hours. The Tsar often went to midnight prayers, prostrating himself on the ground 1,500 times. While one of the most able and energetic men of his age, Nikon also proved an overbearing man. Upon taking power, Nikon spoke with Greek scholars and then changed Muscovite rituals to make them the same as those in the Greek Orthodox Church. With the Tsar backing Nikon, the Patriarch changed the spelling of Christ's name, banned the use of musical instruments in church, and ordered 3 hallelujahs be sung instead of 2. The most notable reform became making the sign of the cross with 3 fingers, not 2. In 1653, Nikon sent letters to every church introducing the new rules. While these changes might seem small to modern people, to Muscovites it meant a catastrophe in this life and the next. Muscovites always crossed themselves with 2 fingers that had their fathers and grandfathers. In their minds, this ancient practice pleased God and assured them of a place in heaven. Priests also took the idea of Muscovy being the Third Rome truly seriously. If Holy Muscovy fell into heresy, the Antichrist and the end of the world must be close at hand. Those who rejected the Nikon reforms rallied to their priests, especially Archpriest Avvakum. Nikon responded to churchmen who failed to accept his new ways by throwing some into prison and removing the fingers and tongues of others. For preaching against reform, the regime sent Avvakum to Siberia for several years. In his description of human misery, such as the lives and labor of convicts, he became poetic. In his autobiography, he wrote, "The river was shallow, the rafts heavy, the guards merciless, the cudgels big, the clubs knotty, the knouts cutting, the torture savage." In time, the regime allowed Avvakum to return to Moscow in the hope he would accept Nikonian reforms. Tsar Alexei I personally tried to persuade him, but Avvakum remained adamant. This time, Avvakum went to the Arctic village of Pustozerk, where he endured freezing, hunger, and, of course, beatings. He vividly described one of his filthy guards. "I cropped his hair and washed him and changed his clothes. There was no end to his fleas." The guard even soiled his trousers while in a cell with the archpriest. Despite his nearly biblical suffering, Avvakum still wrote The Life by himself, the first autobiography in Muscovite history. Saints' lives had been written before by monks, but always long after the man's death and always under church supervision. Tsar Alexei I began to worry that he would burn in hell for bringing the church into turmoil. At first, this fear prompted the Tsar to dither for years on the matter of church reform. Finally, Tsar Alexei I gathered a church council in November 1666, attended by the Patriarchs of Antioch and Alexandria. The 1666 council formally deposed Nikon, but also anathemized the old believers. They could no longer take part in official Orthodox sacraments, they would be taxed twice, banned from gatherings, and forbidden from organizing chapels. To many old believers, this seemed yet another sign of the apocalypse. In 1654, a devastating plague struck Russia, killing up to 800,000 people, nearly 1 in 13 Muscovites. In the middle of it, the solar eclipse of August 1654 happened, further proving the end of the world to be nigh. Finally, the great comet of 1680 lit up the skies as if quoting Revelation 9:1, which reads, "The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss." People became certain the world would soon end, and the old believers saw Nikon as the Antichrist who would make it happen. Facing this apocalyptic realization, old believers saw only one escape. In 1666, the first self-immolation of the old believers happened in the Nizhny Novgorod region, home of Archpriest Avvakum. In March 1666, in the Vologda region, 17 people self-immolated. During 1672, another 2,000 people self-immolated, again in Nizhny Novgorod. And 3 years later, in 1675, another 2,000 died in Vologda. The self-immolating old believers developed a particular procedure for their self-destruction. They did not see it as the mortal sin of suicide, but a final act of protest against a corrupt church and an unjust regime. They constructed a burn house by building together several wooden lodges and then filled it with flammable material like candle wax and paper if available. Inside the burn house, they gave trusted people rifles and axes to murder those who tried to escape. And once the fire started, death came swiftly, not from burns, but carbon monoxide poisoning. The archpriest's suffering finally ended when officials took him back to Moscow and burned him alive before a jeering crowd in 1682. The old believers who remained found comfort in their faith and the writings of the Archpriest Avvakum, which circulated among them in secret. Supposedly, Leo Tolstoy wept every time he read it. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.